Welcome, everybody, to Somewhere in Vegas here on ohomespreaker.com. I'm Mark the Q. I am your host. Just one guest today, and she's a really great gal. She'll be talking a little bit about her company, Just Jans. We'll talk to her shortly. I just want to let you guys know that things are kind of crazy here in Las Vegas. Obviously, everything's shut down. We're not getting as many tourists, obviously, because all the casinos are shut down. It's just really, really eerie, to say the least. If you guys take a look at my Instagram, some SWIV podcast, you guys can check out a video of what the strip looks like right now. It's just kind of crazy, to say the least. But try to stay indoors as much as you can. Obviously take a walk outside, maybe for a couple minutes if you can. Get some fresh air as well. I highly recommend that as well. But hopefully everybody's taking care of themselves while we're going through this crisis. I know it's going to take a little while for here in Vegas to be able to recover from that. But while in the interim, we'll be doing a lot more podcasts. We've got quite a few guests coming up over the next couple weeks, so I wanted to let you guys know that before we got into this interview. I recorded this interview a couple of days ago with the owner of Just Jans. It's been great to be able to talk to her a little bit about some of the stuff that she's going through as this crisis is going on right now, and a little bit about her company as well. And I highly recommend, if you guys are really wanting to get some really nice food while you're kind of hunkered down as well, I highly recommend you go to Just Jans. That's justjans.com, and you guys can check out some of her jams and jellies, as well as some really great recipes. So definitely check that out as well. So without further ado, here's our interview with the owner of Just Jans. My guest at this time has a very exciting business right now. It's called Just Jan. It has a lot of different jams and jellies and all that as well. And I know that a lot of people are looking forward to trying to test them, especially now when they're kind of stuck inside and wanting to do their little foodie things, be able to bake, to be able to cook. So I figured this would be a great time to have Jan Hogrewe on with us right now. How you doing, Jan?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much. As I said, all things considered, I'm doing all right. Thank you.
Yeah, how's it been for you to kind of start this small business and kind of drive your passion for jams and jellies?
Well, the beginning of this business was purely by accident. I was in the film industry for many years. Had a production company where we produced behind the scenes and for DVDs and extra features, and the creativity in that business was actually starting to kind of fade away, and I have a lot of personal things going on in my life, and kind of putting it out there in the universe, if you will, that it was time for a change. So I had a fig tree in my backyard that I planted, not knowing, of course, that it would ever become the start of a business, but making fig jam for family and friends, and happened to be meeting with a friend at the local Starbucks where I gave him a jar, and then he happened to introduce me to somebody there that was in the food industry, and he tasted my fig jam and said, "Wow, I like this better than what's on the market today. Would you ever consider doing this for a living?" And that's the question that changed the course of my career. So that's how it started.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting leap from kind of making something a hobby into making something a business as well. I mean, what were some of the first hurdles that you faced when you were kind of making that leap from a more of a hobbyist over to making this an actual business?
Sure. Well, that's a great question, and it was just family and friends taking it to wine and cheese parties. The hurdles for sure was just learning an entire new business that I was not familiar with. I love food. I've been in the kitchen since I was a young girl, baking for my mom, or just, making candy and cookies and pies, and just always being in the kitchen. So the passion and the creativity was always there, but having to deal with it on a scale of how do we get into how do we get into stores? What are the rules and regulations? And you have to deal with, certification and fruit and seasonality. And so there were a lot of different things not to mention budgeting. I would say that was probably one of the biggest things I had to get used to, because I'd gone from the film business where you have lots of zeros at the end of the decimal. You have lots of zeros before the decimal, to a business that has literally you're shaving pennies where you can.
Yeah, obviously scaling is a big, huge thing too. I mean, obviously your fig tree cannot make enough as much figs as you can to supply the demand that's out there as well. I mean, how was it for you kind of picking ingredients, and what's kind of the process in that?
So I actually never used that fig tree for production. I did it for family and friends. I guess dumb luck, if you will, but I did meet with some fruit growers in Central California, and quickly come to find out that the cost of trucking the fruit to wherever was going to make the product in a certified kitchen, or in our case, we were in a kitchen that ships nationwide. They make products like mayonnaise for Hellmann's and Best Foods, and so they're a large facility, and they've got all the certifications that you need to be able to sell in commercial stores. So for me, it took about a year, maybe a little longer, to visit various co-packing facilities to find out what they do, what size jars they use, what type of products they make that might be similar to what I make, and economies of scale. Meaning, if I were making a raspberry spread, do they get raspberries? Do they make something with raspberries? So the buying power for them would be, I'd benefit from that. So it took about a year, and I probably visited about 6 different facilities, and ended up finding one who after I sent them my formulas and samples of my product, they were able to make 6 of the 8 flavors that I finally settled on exactly like mine. So I knew I found my right place. So they got the fact that I used less sugar, and that the texture was such that it would stand up on a cracker with cheese, for instance, because the fig and the cheese pair so well together. So I kind of had a different mindset going into this, where it was more of a culinary experience and not just about PB&J, So does that answer that?
Yeah, it does. And, interesting you mentioned texture, because, one of the famous stories that are out there is that, when Ben and Jerry's made their ice cream, I don't remember if it's Ben or Jerry, but one of them doesn't have taste. So the idea of why they have chunks in the ice cream is the fact that, that's kind of compensating for the taste of some of the ice creams that he could not taste. Texture has been almost a huge thing as well to have. I mean, I think it does have an effect on how things taste, how the experience is as well. I mean, tell me a little bit about that. And obviously, you said you wanted to use less sugar, and has the texture actually helped in terms of kind of curbing that?
Okay, so yeah, that's a good question, because if I use 0 sugar, then the product would not have the texture that I personally like. So it kind of tends to be more runny. It doesn't work well with I use an apple pectin. So my reason for using any sugar, and again, this was just kind of dumb luck, and I've kind of learned the science behind it. Never was a science major in school, but boy, I've sure learned a lot since then. So part of it is balancing out the sugar that the fruit actually has. So for me, it was making sure that the fruit was what you taste. The sugar was secondary to me. The sugar was, okay, how much do we need to balance it, give it the texture, and, working with the pectin and the lemon juice that it needs, so that I'm getting what I want. The fig has got a more chunky texture, so we don't puree that a lot. It's more of like I say, it stands up to cheese, but yet you can whisk it in. I use it in salad dressings or whatever, but versus my seedless raspberry, which is more like a silky, smooth, creamy texture. Not real heavy. I mean, it's not heavy. I mean, it's not real firm in its set, but again, less sugar, and it tastes like a mouthful of raspberries. So each flavor has its own different components, if you will, meaning sugar, acid, all the different ways that you have to kind of work with to get just the right, for me anyway, I'm kind of picky, just the right set, texture, and flavor, of course. So, yeah, it's each one's a fun process. I love it, though. I'm enjoying this chemistry at this time of my life. So.
Yeah, I mean, that is interesting, the fact that, you go experiment a lot in terms of your kitchen and what works and what doesn't work. I mean, anybody, even Brendan Jerry's has a graveyard of stuff that did not work. But
Right.
I mean, how's that for you in the process of making sure that something is worthy of being a part of your line versus it's not quite there yet? Or is there any certain instances where something didn't quite work and then you realize that you had that light bulb moment that something may help in making it work a lot better?
Yeah. So actually, I did have one. I had in my original line, I had an apricot pepper. I have it again now, by the way. So I had an apricot pepper that didn't have a lot of spice, and I was using dried apricots versus fresh. Again, just, kind of that was my original recipe. But it didn't sell real well, and I've learned quickly, too, that you can't have an ego about any of this because what might be my favorite might not sell. So anyway, so that one I ended up, after the first go-around, I did manage to sell it all, but it took a lot longer, and of course, the clock starts ticking once it's produced. So I ended up taking it out of the line, and then about 4 years later, people kept asking me, do you have a pepper jelly? Do you have, what happened to your apricot pepper? So it kept kind of rearing its little head again, and I thought, well, all right, let's revisit it. So I did. I used fresh apricots instead. I upped the heat factor just a little bit, and we reformulated, and I put it out, and it's selling like crazy now. So you don't know. And that's happened on a few things. So, like I say, sometimes I feel like I'm doing the Disney vaulting of a flavor and saying, okay, I'm going to put this away for a couple of years, see what happens. And if people want it again, or if people are becoming more familiar with just jams, then we'll bring it back again. So,
how important is it? I mean, obviously, with that in mind, I mean, how important is it to have feedback? And I mean, I'm pretty sure, people, reach out to you on social media and saying, I like this, but, or, what happened to this flavor? Or, I mean, when are we expecting this flavor back and the profile? I mean, how important is that feedback, almost instant feedback you get from customers on a daily basis?
Yeah, it actually really is important. I mean, first off, when I'm in the kitchen, I have to be making something that I like. Like, I've had people ask me for rhubarb. I can't tell you how many times. But I have to like what I'm doing, or the end result is not going to be any good, is my theory. I feel like I remember how many times it took me to get the lemon curd just right. And, you have to be willing to kind of step back, depending on what the feedback is or what mood you're in when you're cooking, to be honest. Step back and then go back into the kitchen and say, okay, let's try it again. If it doesn't work, then we've got to be willing to say, all right, set this aside and try it. But to answer your question more directly is, we do a lot of demos, in-store demos. We do a lot of wine fairs and arts and crafts fairs and harvest festivals. So we get a lot of feedback on a regular basis. And, of course, everyone has different taste buds. So the variety of comments we get range from, wow, that's a little sweet for my taste. Do you have anything more tart? To, wow, this tastes like something my grandma made. I'll take 6 jars. So it's good to get the feedback. It's also good that I have to realize that everybody's not going to necessarily gravitate to your product again based on their own taste buds or what they're looking for. But feedback is crucial, and we do have a lot of people who just have been ordering for years, and they continue to order the same 3 or 4 flavors, and then we let everybody know when we've got a new one coming out. And kind of the test market, is those shows that I was mentioning, and seeing what the response is, and then pulling the trigger and saying, all right, let's produce. So it's a big part of it. Again, I kind of have to go, all right, do I really like this enough to go for it? And that's usually the first key. So, but yeah, feedback's very helpful, and I love it, of course, mostly if it's good.
I mean, is it something in the back of your mind to, possibly to do a subscription where you may, reveal a couple of new flavors to your regular customers? Is that something that gets come by in the back of your mind?
I missed part of what you just said, but revealing new flavors that I'm thinking about doing.
I mean, a subscription service, where they have maybe a jelly of the month, and you send maybe a new product. You got kind of feedback on that.
That's a great idea, and we have talked about doing subscription or kind of a once a month jam club, or fruit spread and marmalade